Hey everybody, I know it's been a while for Teach Tuesday, but we are back and we're going to do a super cute little bodysuit. It's called a onesie, but for legality purposes, it's been renamed to a bodysuit because Gerber owns onesie. So this is a bodysuit and it is from Peekaboo Patterns. It is called the Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo bodysuit. And sometimes you'll see it referred to as EMMM. So if you see that, that's what they're talking about. Super cute. We have a little boy due in April, May, so I've been making a ton of these, and so I'm going to show you guys how to make this. It's perfect, of course, gender neutral depending on the fabrics you use. You could make this for a girl or boy. They have long sleeves with cuffs. They have short sleeves, which you can hem. We're going to do long sleeves with cuffs today, and I'll show you what you need. I'm doing the preemie version because I can only go based off how small my daughter was, and so I'm making them for him. I'm going to do the preemie version just in case, but I have enough fabric to make newborn too, just to have the double sizes. But here we go. You need the back, which is cut on a fold. Front, also cut on a fold. Sleeve piece, since you're doing long sleeves, you will need the cuff. If you're just doing short sleeves, which you would fold here, you don't need the cuff, but I'm doing long sleeves, so you need this cuff piece. And you need the leg band piece and the neck band piece, because I'm just making a very simple onesie. They have an option for like a skirt, they have a pocket, they have a hood. This is like a very option friendly pattern. This is what you'd call it. It has a ton of options, but I'm going to be using this really cute ribbed knit today from Zoe Jane Fabrics. It's a newer fabric shop, actually located here in Arkansas, and I got this seafoam green, which is sold out now. Sorry. I didn't grab enough either. I only grabbed 1 yard, but this is super cute. It's that yummy ribbed knit, so it's super soft, and I just love this ribbed knit. So I'm making this, and again, I'm making this for my child, so I am using this ribbed knit polyester fabric. Proceed with caution if you're using it for your kid or selling in your shop, just because little babies can't regulate their temperature very well. And they say polyester is not the best, but so proceed with your own caution and judgment on what you make for your child or what you're selling in your shop. Make sure everything is compliant if you are selling or gifting. Just that's a disclaimer I got to put in there, just so you know I told you. Okay, so this is the front and the back, right sides together, and I'm just holding the shoulder seams here. So as you can see, the front is a lower rise of the neck than the back here. And so I've just put those right sides together. And then I've got my two leg bands, which and the neck band are all doing the ham hot method, which means this is a fold here. And then I'm gonna fold this way here. And then put a pin in it. So I'm gonna do the shoulder seams of that onesie, right side is together like that, and as you can see, the back piece is longer because this is going to be the snap placket that snaps to here. You'll see how it looks when we're all done. So that's that front and back. And then of course I've done the same thing with my cuff pieces. This is how they looked before I folded them. Here's one, so of course you're going to fold it right sides together across the stretch, and then you're going to fold it one more time this way across the grain line. And you do that with both of them, the ham hot method, and I've done it with this one already. So I'm gonna go ahead and to really make sure you're doing the hot ham method, especially with cuffs, the bands are a little bit easier because you know the longest is gonna be your stretch and the shortest distance is gonna be your grain line. And then with rib fabric, you know, because it's vertical rib fabric, so you know. But this one here, how you know is you would stretch, you do it across the stretch and then across the grain line. That's how you know if you're doing your cuffs correctly. And these are teeny tiny preemie cuffs. And then of course the sleeves, which have this point. If you want to omit the little triangular point, some patterns do that, the little pattern piece point here, so that you don't have to snip. I still prefer snipping, but I went ahead and cut these as is. All right, so we're not going to use these yet. I'm going to go ahead and go sew up all of this stuff really fast, and we'll come back and do what's next. All right, so my sleeve pieces I didn't do anything with. I just went ahead and put my right sides together here and did the shoulder seams. And then I got my cuffs here, and I snipped the point across from the seam just to have a point of reference when I'm putting these little tiny cuffs on. Tiny cuff. And of course I didn't mention earlier, but you will need some sort of snap for this. And I'm going to be using cam snaps. I used them in previous videos here. I use size 16 open ring with the handy dandy hand press from Cam Snaps. I will link that down below, as always, along with the pattern, just so it's easy for you guys to find it. Alright, so for the leg band pieces, you are not going to sew these with the hot hand method, or with the leg band pieces, you are not going to sew these like the ham hot method. You are going to prepare them like a straight, like you do it on the flat. So you put them wrong sides together like this. Alright, but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and make my snips with it folded the ham burger style here, which is just like you would cut on the fold. And so I'm going to go ahead and snip my end pieces here on both sides, just so I have a point of reference to line up with the seam when I'm adding these cuffs. So the only ones, if you're doing the long sleeve version, that you'll do the ham hot method with, if you prefer that method, is the cuffs and the neck band. The leg bands will not be sewn shut. We're going to do those in the flat. So let's go ahead and move on. So you've done the shoulder seams of the actual body of the onesie. You're going to open it up, wrong side down, right side up. We're going to grab these sleeves here. I just like to use one pin. You can use as many pins as you need. And right side down to the sleeve, because your right side's together. So if the right side's facing up, you're going to put the sleeve right side facing down. And you're going to match that little triangle or snip, whichever one you chose to do, to that shoulder seam like this. And you may be noticing, if you've watched some of my previous videos, I like to do the inset sleeve. I think that's what it's called. I may have them backwards, but typically I like to go ahead and sew the garment, all the seams, and then sew my sleeves, seam, and then add the sleeve in the round. But with these tiny preemie ones, I have determined that sewing it in the flat is so much easier. So that's why I'm doing it like this, and I believe the pattern actually calls for it like this. With the bigger sizes, this pattern goes up to size 4T, which is great also for people who may have bigger kids who want to rock the onesie or a bodysuit or whatever you want to call it. Alright, so I've done those, and then pretty much what you're going to do is, it looks like it won't fit, of course, but you will pretty much stretch it in to fit. You guys get the point. So you'll stretch the sleeve. It's kind of like an opposite curve, and you'll just stretch it in to fit correctly as you sew. So we're going to sew these sleeves on real fast, and we'll be right back. I want to bring you guys with me, and we'll sew the rest of this pretty much over at the sewing machine or serger, whichever one you have. Alright, so here we are at the serger, and we're just going to add the sleeves. Let me get everything out of the way here. We're just going to add the sleeves. So what I'm going to do, I got that middle point here. So I'm going to go ahead and match the one side of my sleeve right here and put it underneath my serger knife. I like to go ahead and make sure my knife's up and get the needle in the fabric before I start pulling on the fabric. It's just what I like to do. And then you'll just kind of pull it to lay flat. Don't pull it too much or you'll have a wonky sleeve. Alright, remove your pins before you serge over them, because it's just not good for anybody. It's not good for your machine, it's not good for your eyeballs. Alright, and then you just keep doing the same thing. You'll cut that little triangle spot off if you kept that. And I am using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I forget what the pattern actually calls for, but I typically use this on any pattern. Unless it's like specifically like a crazy seam allowance, like a 3/8 or 5/8 I've even seen, or a half. Alright, so as you can see, it curved right along in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same step with the other side. Again, you'll match up this armpit sleeve part here with that part. Put it underneath your knife. Get it underneath the needle. And then stretch it. Just making sure those two raw edges are together. It will require a little finesse to get it, because it's the point is to make this curve go into this curve. So they are kind of opposites. But it'll make sense once you get it. once you get it down. All right, we got our sleeves on. Okay, and then when you actually fold it, right sides together, you'll have a sleeve here and a sleeve here. And so we're just going to do the entire sleeve down to here, sleeve down to here. This is the bottom of the onesie. And so I'm just going to do this entire side seam now with the sleeve all the way down to the side. On both sides here, just make sure everything's lined up. If you need to use pins, use pins. And if you see me using the serger, you can absolutely use a sewing machine. I just find the sergers quicker and looks better on the inside. Alright, cut your tails, not too short, but short enough. And then we're going to do the other side exactly. And then I like to just make sure that the armpit seams are matching up because it's kind of noticeable if you don't. And then just make sure these are matching up. Oops. I'll just drop everything. This is going to be the cutest, coziest little onesie. I'm so excited. Just counting down the days. Alright, and since we have one seam here, I'm going to go ahead and snip right here on the sleeve for a point of reference and do the exact same thing on the other side. Here, point of reference. Alright. Here's the neckband, and I'm going to quarter this up too, like I quartered up the neckband. I didn't do that on camera, but I did quarter up the neckband. I use the seam as 1 point, and then I make 3 equal points. So I'm going to go ahead and put them shoulder seam to shoulder seam. So we have the back middle here, front middle here, and then since the rise is different, you'll have to match up the front and the back points that you just did here, and then find the true side pieces here, side points, I should say, which will always be typically about a centimeter to a centimeter and a half in front of that shoulder seam. So we have all of our neckband pieces, and so what I'm going to do next is go ahead and add the little bitty tiny cuffs. And so I'm going to use one little pin, and I'm going to match up. So here's my tiny cuff. I'm going to match up the seam with the seam. So I'll put this in here. I put the cuff inside the sleeve here. I'm going to match up the seam with the arm seam of the sleeve, and I'm just going to put my pin here on the sleeve on that seam, and then just match up the other side points with the point that I cut on the sleeve. Then I'm going to put that underneath my serger, and this is a tiny little cuff, so it might be a little difficult if you're doing the preemie size. You can absolutely do these on the flat. I just prefer them on the round because I don't have a seam that's going to bother baby. You just got to be really careful not to stab your finger. Alright. And then tuck your tail. Okay. Tiny little cuff on there. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Got my other sleeve, got my other cuff. I like to just go ahead and put my fingers in it like this, so it's easier to poke it into the sleeve here. And then you poke it in there like this. Match up your sleeve seam to your cuff seam, and I like to go ahead and nest that seam there, which just means if my cuff seam is going this way, I like to make sure that my sleeve seam is going this way. Sometimes it moves, so it's not 100% necessary, but it helps. Match up that seam, so this other little tiny cuff on. And then we're close close to being done. Alright, cut my tail kind of short. And then just tuck my tail here. And pull it through. Snip off the excess so our cuffs are on there. I'm going to go ahead and add the neckband here. So I'm going to start with the back here. The garment is still inside out. So the wrong side is facing outwards. And I'm going to put the neckband on the inside like this. And again, I've already quartered this. I quartered the neckband on camera. I quartered the neck hole on camera, but I quartered this off camera. You just make sure you have 4 equal points. And I'm using the seam, back seam to go in the back here. I'm just going to put my pins in here. And so I put the cuff on the inside of the neck hole because the garment is wrong side out. All right. And I'm just going around here. I'm going to use 3 pins. Well, keeps falling down on me. This fabric is so soft and it's just snuggly. Can't wait to snuggle a little baby in this. Alright. And then so this last little snipped point here, I'm just going to match up and put underneath my serger. I'm not going to do a pin because I'm going to remove it anyway. And then I'll let the fabric go underneath the needle. And then I'll pull. And what you're going to do is you're going to pull it just enough. What is this? Oh, that's the other side. Okay. Pull it just enough so that the neckband and the neck hole lay flat. And of course you would add a tag here. But since this is for my child, I'm not going to add a tag. I may add an iron-on tag just because it's a newborn or it's a preemie size. And I don't want any irritation on this brand new skin, so. Alright, remove this pin. And you can absolutely sew this in the round too. I just find this is a way easier way to add tags. So I've just made it a habit to do neckbands like this. All the while just making sure the 2 raw edges from the neckband and the 1 raw edge of the neck hole are lined up. I'm taking care not to stretch too much, but just enough. Alright. Neckband is on there, and all that's left are the leg bands. Finish the snap placket, and then add the snaps, and we are done. And the leg bands are super easy. Alright. Cut that. And I'm going to go ahead and flip this right side out. So we can see the cute little progress. It's so cute. Let me go ahead and pull my cuff out here. Tiny little onesie. And then you got the bottom part here. So now we're going to add the leg bands. All right, so what you're going to do is open up your onesie here. This is the back, like the crotch part, the front crotch part. And so this is like the side seam here, side seams. And I'm just going to go ahead and make sure my cuff part here is wrong sides together so that the right side is exposed. So I'm going to go ahead and match up that middle point right here. And then I'm just going to grab it here, the cuff piece, the leg band piece I should say, and pull it down here to the front crotch, all the way down so that your edges are like this. So that's the crotch piece here, and so that's my leg band piece. And I'm just going to kind of hold it flat on that straight little crotch piece there and put it underneath my serger knife so I can turn the camera. Alright, so as you can see, this is the crotch piece, this is the leg band piece. I'm going to get started before I start pulling. And then I like to just kind of go ahead and guide the leg band to just stay flat alongside. the edge here. So it'll take a little bit of finesse again. You want to remove that pin. And then you want to take this, you'll match it up to the back crotch part, and then you'll just stretch it gently just to lay flat. And then, as you can see, when you add the leg band, it looks like this. And I'm going to go ahead and top stitch this down with my cover stitch, but I'm going to go ahead and do the other one first. So again, front crotch, back crotch, and then that side seam is, Lord, that side seam, I was looking at the phone. That side seam is where we're going to match up our little cuff piece or band piece here. So again, wrong sides together because you want the right side exposed. And so that's the little snipped point in the middle that I made. That's what I'm going to match up with this side seam here. And then again, like I said, you can use as many pins as you want. I just go ahead and match up that middle point. And then I take the end of the leg band and match it up with the crotch piece here, whichever side you're starting with. I think this is the back crotch. And I put it underneath my scissor knife just to get it underneath before I start messing with it, because otherwise you'll just pull it right out, and that's kind of frustrating. Alright, and then I'm just going to make sure all my edges are lined up, the two raw edges from the cuff, or from the band, and the one raw edge from the actual bodysuit. Remove that pin before you get close to it. And then match up your end piece here with the other crotch. And then just make sure that you're going in a straight line and everything's still lining up. Both leg bands on here, so now I'm just going to go ahead, go over to the cover stitch, or if you have a sewing machine, and just basically top stitch these seams down this way. And so it'll be right beside the seam here and right beside the seam here. And so let's go do that. I don't think I've got to use my cover stitch since I got it on video, but my settings, I got it like a 3.5 on the yellow knob. I have 2 needles. Yellow knob 3.5, pink knob 4, and then my looper, which is the blue, is at 4. I have my differential feed set at 0.7, and then I believe the stitch length is set at 4. I think that's all the little knobbies that are on here. Okay, and so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place this a little ahead, I guess before, so it's not directly underneath the needle. And I like to pull my strings taut here as I get started. And then I'm just literally sewing, making sure that my seam, my serger seam under here is going this way. And as you can see, it just top stitches that down. You don't want to stretch it too much. You just want to make sure it's laying flat and that the seam is still where you want it to go. And when you get to the edge here, you're going to lift your needles up all the way, and then you're going to pull these 2 threads. You're going to pull them here. You're going to lift your foot, go underneath here, and grab those 2 threads. Gently let them go back. Then you're going to snip them here. Kind of push them off to the side. Then you're going to release the tension of your looper. And I should have mentioned that too. When you're pulling the threads, hit the tension knobs up here. These 2 things, when you're pulling that thread, it's a lot easier to push those down while you're pulling. and you push them down and right. And then also same thing with the looper one. As you pull this, push it down and right. You just kind of pull this over like this. Okay, so to repeat those steps, that's what it ends up looking like. Repeat those steps with the other side here. And again, when you get to the end, make sure your needles are all the way up. Push these tension release discs on the yellow and pink as you pull the strings here. Then you lift your presser foot. Either use your snippers or some other tool to pull these out from underneath your presser foot. Snip both of them gently. Mine kind of twisted a little bit. And then kind of set them to the side. Release your tension disc of your looper and pull. And the best part about this is it pulls all of these strings to the back and it already knots them for you. So you just go ahead and snip those. All right. And then, of course, if you're using a thinner fabric, you're going to want to use some sort of interfacing or woven fabric. And I'm just going to use a tiny snip, tiny little cut of woven fabric to sandwich in here for my snap placket. So give me just a second. All right, so I literally just cut a tiny little piece of woven fabric that I had. And that's what I'm going to kind of put right here as I fold this over to do the snap placket like this. And then I'm going to move that other little piece out. And I'm going to put this underneath the cover stitch just to sew it. And again, if you don't have a cover stitch, you can use a sewing machine. I just like the way the cover stitch looks. Now that I've got it, I'm going to use it. Alright, same way we did the other one. And of course, when you get to the edge, tension discs, pull your threads like this. Somebody mentioned a crochet hook, but then you lift your presser foot, go under here. Somebody mentioned a crochet hook can pull those strings easier for you. I haven't had an issue. Then your looper, pull it, cut that one, and then all of those are in the back and knotted, so you don't have to worry about those. But this one over here, I kind of missed that edge there. But I like to go ahead and knot these ones over here to the side. And so how you do that, so just kind of unravel them a little bit. Just make sure that they're all kind of knotted. Well, mine kind of knotted themselves, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that little knot off. And then just knot these. And then you can use fray check to make sure that it stays. And then I'm just going to knot those ones. And then I'm also going to knot this one. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but this is just how I'm going to do it. I missed a piece here under my cover stitch too, so I may go over to my serger or my sewing machine just to lay that little piece down that I missed. All right, you're going to do the exact same thing with the other side. Again, if you don't have interfacing, just a tiny little piece of cotton woven will work here. This is just to make sure that the snaps don't come out of the fabric, of course. Alright, so then once you get that in there folded, put it over here, and we're going to try to get this one correct under here. And when you get to the edge, again, needles in the up position, tension disc down, pulling your threads, lifting your presser foot, coming underneath to grab those threads, gently putting them back so they don't get twisted. Snipping it right here, and then pushing the looper tension and pulling it out, and then making sure all those threads are there. And then again, of course, I missed it again. No, that's not the same side. Okay, no, I did miss it. This fabric is really fickle and moving a lot, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go back with my sewing machine just to make sure that that sits pretty and isn't looking crazy. Give me just a second to fix it. I got my snap placket fixed. This is how it looks without the snaps, and then we're just going to add the snaps and be done. And it's super duper adorable little onesie. And so let's go ahead and add the snaps. As always, I am using cam snaps, size 16, open ring. They are compliant. And I'm using the cam snap handheld tool. And you will need 6 of the, I don't even know what these pieces are called. They're the ones with the prongs. We'll call them prong pieces. You'll need 6 of those because you want 3 full snaps. 6 of this. You'll need 3 of the male parts, which are the ones with the little sticky outy part, hence the term male part. And then 3 of the female parts. 2, 3. Alright. And then what I like to do is go ahead and get some sort of pen. I'm going to use this. You can use a water soluble pen if you're not too sure. But I like to go ahead and, so the garment is right side out. And just like a normal onesie bodysuit, the male parts typically go here so that when the female part goes here, you can just snap them in. That's what I like to do. I just followed what a normal onesie looks like. And so to do that, I'm going to fold this one like this, get the true middle here, and that's where my middle snap is going. I'm just putting a tiny dot. Okay, so for this one, you're going to fold it the exact same way, this way, and find the true middle of the bottom piece. Alright, and then I like to grab a ruler just to get it spaced out. It never ends up perfect, but at least I try. And this is the tiny, tiny one. So I'm going to go ahead and just measure about a 1/2 inch over. And that's where my other little snap's going to go. Same thing with the bottom piece. About a 1/2 inch over from the middle point. And that's where my snaps are going to go. Alright, and then so this is how you'll do that. You'll hold, this is how you hold it. This is the bottom, this is the crank. And I like to do the male pieces first. So then the pointy piece, you go push it up into the top part here. It's a little difficult once you get it in there. Stick it in there, the pointy out part facing up, and you put the prong on there like that. And then you just put this on the middle here. Try to get it lined up as best as you can with the marks that you made. And then press gently. You can press hard, gently, whatever. Alright, so we got one snap on there, and I'm going to do really quickly the rest of these pieces here. Alright, last nail piece. Alright, just put this right in between here. And give it a good squeeze. Alright, so we got 3 snaps there, and then we're going to add the female ones, and you can tell there's like ripples on one side and there's like a ring on the other. The ring side is the one that alright, let me show. This is the side that you want facing down, so that's the side the prongs will go into. This is the side that the actual male piece will go into. So just so you know which side's which, this is the side you want it to look like. That's what you want it to look like. Alright, so you want that side that you want the prongs to go into facing down. So you want the other part facing up when you put it into the tool. And then you will put it in there like this. Again, try to line it up as best as possible. Sometimes it doesn't work out that great. Alright, last 2 and we'll be done. And you can also top stitch this neckband down. I'm not going to, just because I don't know how big little dude's head's going to be, and I feel like sometimes when you top stitch it down, it kind of takes away from the stretchiness of the neck. So I'm just going to go ahead and snap my snaps here. And we have a bodysuit, my friends. A cute, teensy weensy little bodysuit. And that is what it looks like when it's completed. Super cute. And this preemie size looks like it will fit a teeny tiny baby. And I just know that with our daughter, she was 6 pounds, 15 ounces, and just the tiniest little thing. And I know some babies are even smaller than that, so I can only go based on that. He may be huge, who knows, but at least he'll be really cute dressed. So that's how you do the eeny, meeny, miny, mo pattern from Peekaboo Patterns. The link will be down below. Let me know what you guys think, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys next Teach It Tuesday. Bye!